We're getting so good at this, Quinn. Well, I am. You're basically not doing anything, which is standard. I do everything here.
That's why we never get anything done.
That's rude. How rude. All right. Now that rudeness is over, let's get the show started. What's up, everybody? It's Jesse Ziegler, and I think you know who that is.
Yeah, Quinn Cody.
Quinn Cody, and this is another episode of Dakar Rally Daily's 2024 Dakar Rally pre-show interview style. Not our pre-show. Our pre-show is something different, where we're going to get into the nitty-gritty on the race, talk about a lot of stuff, but this is like, let's bring in some celebrity status.
Yeah.
Elite.
Need somebody
legends.
who knows something about the race.
Yeah, so today we have somebody very special. It's Mr. Johnny Campbell, who is a legend in his own status, and he's here to hang out with us today. What's happening, JC?
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me in. Stoked to be in the bivouac.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here.
Yeah, we're getting we're close to Christmas right now, which means always Dakar is around the corner.
It's the Christmas gift that keeps on giving every year. The trip to Saudi Arabia, and a couple weeks in a motorhome racing across the desert.
Middle East for New Year's. I'm quite accustomed to it now.
Wow, it's crazy.
I know.
So it's
Here
the
we are
22nd.
again.
We're a couple days away from the big day, and then what day do you leave to go to Saudi again this year?
Yeah, actually, this year I got a little gift, and I don't have to leave till the 29th.
Oh, nice.
Normally, the last several years I've been leaving on Christmas Day, so it's been a hectic day for the family and stuff. But we've kind of gotten accustomed to it. So this year, when I had an option to leave later because the race is starting later this year on the 5th. So I was like, yep, I'm taking that one.
Yeah, I'll take all the days I can at home. And then let's remind everybody your role with the Honda HRC rally team. What is your role specifically with the team and with the American contingent specifically there?
My main role is to help coordinate durability and performance testing here in California or whatever state we're in.
For the actual rally team bikes.
Yeah, for the HRC factory bikes. So over 10 years ago, they tapped me for that, and we've just been evolving ever since, and we've got a pretty good system now. So it's pretty good. We'll host 2 or 3 tests a year and multiple weeks sometimes. And then on top of that, I try to help the guys with training and stuff. And a lot of times with the team, like this last year, we did the Sonora Rally. So I had a hand in helping coordinate that effort because it's in more or less our backyard.
Right.
So helped them there, used a bunch of JCR assets and American Honda assets and stuff to help facilitate that, along with some of the other testing stuff we do. So
you're busy not just with the rally program, but with JCR racing as well, which is, your domestic racing program focused on West Coast, Grand Prix, National Hare and Hound or desert racing kind of stuff there. Give us the JCR background too.
Yeah, the JCR background, we've done, we've competed in all sorts of gamut of off-road, right? Yeah. Off-road's such a broad term. You go, I race off-road. Well, it's like, whoa. Yeah. What discipline? Yeah. It's like, you go, I race motocross. You go, okay, that's motocross.
Yeah.
I race off-road. It's like, well, do you race Rally Dakar? Do you race Baja? Do you race Hare and Hound? Do you race Grand Prix? Do you race GNCC? Do you race Enduros? Do you race hard Enduros?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sprint Enduros.
Yeah, Sprint Enduros, trials. And so there's so many different things, and we've been fortunate enough to travel worldwide and do all sorts of types of racing, from JNCC in Japan to the Dakar Rally to our local, more regional series, the NGPC, the Grand Prix Series, National Hare and Hounds. I spent 5 years hosting the GNCC team, and so just been doing a lot. But most recent we've been doing Grand Prix and Hare and Hounds primarily.
Right. It's focused on West Coast stuff, closer to home.
Yeah.
And then even before that, you're obviously most known, I think, in the industry or in the motorcycle things for Baja racing, desert races in, the most legendary desert race in the world.
Yeah.
And that started, You know, when did that start specifically? We just talked about it, but I want you to answer that. When did that start, and how did it start actually to get connected with Honda in the beginning?
Wow, that's a long time ago.
I think we were just looking at some old cycle news.
Yeah, we were flipping through pages
from,
looking
90,
for
91, 92.
those are the good old days.
But I you know, my upbringing was around Grand Prix racing and a little bit of motocross and stuff. But I got connected with going to Baja through Faye's uncle Craig Adams, and took me down the pre-running and stuff. And then we we started fielding a team, like myself, my brother, Dave Donatoni, and and we rode the 250 class for a long time down there, or for a couple of years, I should say. And then just cross paths with the Honda guys, primarily Bruce Ogilvie, who was the late great Bruce Ogilvie that ran the program then, and was able to connect with him, and who actually became my mentor for several years.
Yeah, and defined how you proceeded in your life of racing, probably, and Quinn as well. Quinn was a Bruce Ogilvie product as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I learned
and a Johnny Campbell
product from Johnny. I mean, Johnny was definitely a big influence on my life and my career, you know, and Bruce, all that knowledge transferred through, from Bruce to Johnny, and so it's crazy how all this stuff is
small world
over
right?
the years.
It's a small world, but the accolades speak for themselves. 11 Baja 1000 wins and numerous victories other than those, and I think that transitioned into even Dakar Rally, which is kind of how the connection there all comes to what you do now. And you raced Dakar Rally in 2000, 2001?
Yeah, 2001 was my first Dakar.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but I think it's always interesting to bring it back up because of how much the race has changed. And you've been in both places, with all the other Americans that were involved with it. And where the Americans are now is a much different place than it was back then. So go back in time for us for just a minute.
Well, I'll go back all the way to the Nevada rallies, and many people don't know about those races because there was 3 years. Franco Cherby's, he partnered with his good friend Casey Folks, and they built these road book staged events around Nevada for 3 years, 93 through 95.
Yep.
And I was like 23, 24 back then. It was like, what is rally racing? I've heard of a Dakar rally, but I don't even know what it is, right? And so there's this thing called a road book, and it's like, okay, what's that, And so I was introduced to it in the early mid-90s there, and we really, in America, we really didn't know. There was a few of us that got it, like I think Chuck Stearns was one of the first notable guys that went over and did the rally, figured out rally, Danny Laporte, and then like Jimmy Lewis, and they had an idea of actually what it was and competed, long before any Americans or any of us really understood what it was.
Yeah.
And I still think even this many years later, decades later, we're still introducing Americans to what the rally sport is.
Yeah, it's so unique and bizarre almost to an American motorsports fan that it deserves to be promoted.
That's the number one question you get from people is, why do you guys use a paper road book? Isn't there like stuff now that you don't have to do that, like a GPS?
I don't understand. It's complicated, and I think that's the beauty of it is that it's hard and complicated. And so you were introduced to it, and
so I was introduced to it, and Nevada Rally was my first year I went, was 94, and we're just on our XR600s and put a bolt on we actually did have an electronic scrolling road book back then, just like they do now, but it was a little archaic. And then but I didn't know, I followed the fast guys, right? Alon Olivier was like the rally guy that came over, that he was a French guy that was super wily and tricky, and he tricked me that year and stuff. I was fast enough to ride with those guys, but I didn't know how to navigate,
Yeah.
And then the next year we trained, Bruce goes, hey, all you guys are going to go make your own road books, and you're going to figure out how to do this. And we did. So each weekend leading up to the rally, we'd go out and, you know, myself and Jimmy and Bruce and, gosh, who else was there? Jeff Kapp was there, Davide Trolli, an Italian guy that was on our team at the time, our Baja team. And we all made road books. We went out and trained. We figured it out. And then next year I was able to compete with, you know, Stefan Peter Hansel.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, although I believe our equipment was superior and it was our backyard, you know, it was like I was competing against this guy that knew how to win the Dakar.
Yeah,
you know?
cool.
So it was pretty cool. But then from there, after 95, I really didn't pursue the rally sport. I still didn't understand or know much about it. I rode with Jimmy Lewis a lot at that time, and he went over and he went and experimented with it, and, you know, had a big experience the first year, got sick, DNF, you know, and stuff. And then he went back and completed it. And so I was kind of drawn to it just because I was around him a lot. And then in the year 2000, Casey Folks put on a race that wasn't navigational, but it was the same as like the Nevada Rally, staged 6-day race. And Franco Iturbi's came over to watch the race, and he's watching the race. And I think at the end of day 4, I was in second, and he came over and he goes, you know, I think it's time for you to go to Dakar. If you win this race, I'll take you there. And we got a lucky break. Actually, you know, Destry was leading the thing and he crashed, unfortunately, but we took the lead from there in the last 2 days, and I won. And so Franco goes, "You're going to Dakar." And I'm just like, whoa, you know, it was
cool.
And so that first year I went in 2001, he set the whole program. He got the truck driver, the mechanic. I had to ride a Honda at that point because of my contracts here in the States. And so he got with a Italian importer, Delara, and they built me a XR 650 Dakar bike. You know?
Cool.
He made special tanks for it and everything. So, so we went and we did that, and it was a huge experience. I mean, the Dakar then compared to now was such a different animal.
I bet. Yeah.
You know?
Totally
and so
different world.
that year it started in Paris, right?
Yeah.
And went all the way to Dakar, Senegal. So down through
you were
Africa.
commuting through Paris and Portugal.
Yeah.
And then cross the.
Yeah, we did Paris, Spain. I don't think we didn't go to Portugal. We did Paris, France, and then went through Spain. You got on the ferry boat. You did the ferry thing to Morocco, like 5 days in Morocco, a few days in Mauritania. Then you go to Mali and then into Senegal, you know, all these.
I remember watching, kind of following the rally, because I think Jimmy was there too, and Johnny was there. And you had a really good like prologue stage that year, right? Like, because a lot of the guys were on big twin cylinders, and Johnny was on the 650, maybe a little more nimble, but
yeah.
That tells you how big the bikes were back then. When the 650 was the nimble, you know, the quick bike.
Yeah. So the first stage, right? I remember leaving around 5:30, dark, raining, underneath the Eiffel Tower. And the first day was 950 kilometers to Narbonne.
God.
Okay, this is all highway.
500 miles of highway.
I was like the Michelin Man. Like I had like
every layer,
snowsuit, whatever. I'm just riding with these big old pillows all over me, and just trying to get out of Paris. How do we get out of Paris? You know, you're following this, trying to follow your road book. Everything's wet. You can't see. Lights are in. You know.
Yeah.
And, then I saw my van. Oh, I just follow my van. So you follow the van out of town, and then you're on the highway forever, right? They had one special, which was the prologue, what Quinn's talking about, in the middle. It was like 6 kilometers. It was just like a little sprint, like on this little autocross track.
Turn track, yeah.
Yeah. Almost just like a ceremonial thing
just to
for the fans.
Keep you on your toes.
The striking thing about that whole event, I mean, that whole first thing was, it was raining, pouring, it was cold, and every overpass, it was packed with people just watching going out of France. It was amazing.
Yeah. Right. Gwyn was saying that yesterday, how in South America when he raced, it was similar. He goes for
100 kilometers.
100 kilometers.
Barcelona.
Every spot you could stand next to the freeway, full of people next to the freeway.
Yeah.
Just like everywhere.
Yeah, I think, and I think those Latin countries down in South America, they are such huge motorsports fans.
Yep.
I mean, there was 1 million live, impressions. There's 1 million live people watching that thing, especially when you're around Buenos Aires or Santiago or wherever the race went that year.
And probably similar in Paris that day you were there.
Yeah, it was packed. Yeah.
Very cool.
So, so that was in those days also, it was a 20 to 21 day race,
Jeez,
it was, we got our quote unquote rest day at day 10, and it was just a longer endurance, a longer strategy. Mm-hmm. You were really on your own more. I mean, there was no motorhomes, there was no highways for transport, vehicles and stuff like there is nowadays. It's like, it's fairly simple to drive from bivouac to bivouac in a 2-wheel drive vehicle.
Right.
But when you're in Africa, the road is the course. The course is the path to get there.
Everybody's getting to the next pit on the same route.
I remember my support truck, getting to the bivouac at midnight.
And you're just hanging out waiting for it.
And then, they gave you an airplane box. And so there was an airplane that would fly bivouac to bivouac. And so you had a little box, and then you could set up, you had your tent and stuff, and there may be a couple little spare parts. But you would just go get your airplane box, open your tent, and you just go to sleep. And you just wait for your support truck. And then support truck shows up. And what I would do is I would just leave a note on my bike for my mechanic what needed to be done. Mm-hmm. And then I would try to go to sleep.
Yeah. A little different experience than it is today, but a different.
It's basically Malimoto.
Yeah, for sure. You're taking care of yourself.
Yeah. It was pretty raw though,
Yeah.
In those days, it was a lot of different. Also the equipment, not just the bike, but the GPS equipment and stuff that we used was it was more like there was an open arrow that sent you to the next waypoint, but it's okay, the next waypoint's 40 or 50 kilometers away.
Yeah.
There's a Grand Canyon in between. How do you get there?
You got to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, you just can't just go straight.
So you got to follow the road book to get you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's quite different, and now we don't have open arrow until you're close to the waypoint.
Yeah. A couple kilometers or so. Yeah, depends.
And then those the big open spaces in Africa, the big fast long roads, and racing against the twin cylinders too on a 650 single is got to be kind of a little bit.
Yeah, you don't even try to keep up with them.
Yeah,
your bike can maybe do 99. you know, and their bikes were capable of 120. So it's man, you had those guys on those BMW twin cylinders, and I think KTM was a 950 twin back then and stuff, and so those guys were really hauling the mail.
Just full works, no rules, just make the biggest bike that can win across the biggest desert.
Big.
It's terrifying.
Yeah,
they go fast, but it takes half a mile to slow them down.
Yeah,
aircraft carrier bikes.
Yeah, it was really something. So big experience.
Had
a great finish. I was 8th overall.
Mm-hmm.
It was, just I got into my rhythm and just kind of stayed there. And every day somebody would take themselves out, and I just kind of moved up. Not even by riding any harder. Just don't get lost. Slow down. Just get there. And and every day somebody would blow a moose out or blow a wheel up or something.
It's inevitable. Stuff's going to happen on that big of a race, and if you can somehow just keep going, you'll be.
It's basically a privateer effort. You guys weren't factory supported. It was a home built motorcycle for the most part.
Yeah.
So against the factory BMW, KTM,
Yamaha,
Yamaha there, yeah. So
I mean that's not different than Honda's effort up until Johnny was involved 10 years ago to build this rally bike. Anybody that went there to race a Honda, Quinn included, it was build your own bike out of parts you can find. That's the theme with Honda until the modern day HRC program.
And then I was right in the middle of my Baja career then.
Yeah.
And my program at American Honda and stuff was really strong, and Bruce and I were evolving it every year, and started getting younger guys like Quinn and Kendall and those guys coming along, and so we. I focused on that, and I didn't really focus on the rally stuff, and then until later, like when I had really kind of stopped racing and I started JCR, and then Quinn was one of my racers, and he's like, hey, I want to go do this. And it's like, okay, well, let's figure out how to do it, And so I remember us just like,
that's how we do it.
Well, let's sell this tire and this chain guide, and let's get this guy to give us $5, and, and we kind of
start assembling this bike.
Yeah.
To figure out, in the first year Quinn went, he used a bike from HT Rally, Hank Helliger's over in the Netherlands, and he was the Honda kind of rental guy, right? And he had an effort there, so Quinn went and rode that, and then the next he did really good. I think he finished ninth
that year, yeah.
And then
ninth finish curse.
And then the next year we're like, we could do better. Let's try to make our own bike based off our Baja chassis and a Baja motor.
Sure. After you learn that first year.
And so we went, and then unfortunately Quinn had a bad spill, but
it's because he got ninth the year before. It's happened to other people too.
But the Bomber's still running.
Yeah.
Dude, the Bomber bike will show up on Instagram. It's still out there.
it
Gnarly Dave's not letting that thing die.
I ran into Dave Manriquez has been riding my old Dakar Bomber around from 2012, and I was out testing out of Bell Mountain, and all of a sudden Manriquez goes riding by, and I'm like, hey, and
Quinn has like a
over,
PTSD.
So I'm
shake.
like, let me get on that thing. Let me ride it.
and what'd you think?
And oh god, it was so slow, and. I mean, you twist the throttle and it's like just nothing happens. And it's unbelievable how it really did feel like a vintage bike.
Yeah.
And, we were testing modern stuff and fuel injected, everything else. And it's like, oh my God, this is such a different animal. I can't believe we raced that thing.
That's funny. Everything's.
But I mean, yeah, it's, for the time it was awesome. And that bike did some stuff. I remember the KTM guys coming up to me, and there would be like these rough camel grass sections, and they would come up to me after the stage, and they're like, your bike looks so good through that stuff. It handles so good, and the technical slow stuff, right? And they were in those days, the KTM guys were on it was the first year of the 450, and they were on a 690 that they just stuffed a 450 engine in. So they had this big giant chassis with a 450 engine in it, and it didn't really work in the rough stuff. And our bike, pretty close to what we raced in Baja, so it actually worked okay through there.
Yeah. We had some hand-me-down A-kit stuff from the motocross team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we got Bones out there to, do some valving and stuff. And so it was comfortable. I mean, Quinn felt pretty good on it, I think, going into the race.
Yeah.
Felt really good that one day.
That one day he was going so good.
Yeah.
That's another story. That's another.
Confidence was high that day, for sure.
That's what it takes. But yeah, then you get into, 10 years later after that, you get into the new modern Honda program, and you're basically in charge of developing this bike along with HRC here in the States. And
that kind of started the following year, basically, right? You
really
moved
did.
in.
Wow.
So what really went from there is like, I got that. I think that year you crashed, I was a navigator for Robbie Gordon.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were in the car.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, how do I have the money to actually go down and see Quinn ride, or
you have to get a job. You have to get a job there.
Yeah. So I got a job, like typical Robbie Gordon. December 4th. Hey, want to go Dakar? What?
Yeah, we're leaving in 20 days.
Come on, you can do it. I'm like, I haven't navigated in like 10 years. How's it going? And but yeah, so Robbie ended up bringing that bike back for us.
I gotcha.
And then we got it back, and then Hide Hanawan, our good buddy, we beat it back into submission, and then Japan calls us within 2 or 3 months of the race and goes, hey, we want to see your bike, and so we ship it over there, and then okay, I didn't think much of it, and then about mid-year there's like, we're gonna go Dakar. I'm like, oh really? Yeah. So so that kind of started there.
Yeah.
I mean, Quinn and I developed along with Eric Siriton, that started Honda's. They probably wanted to do something before that, because on the other side of things, the economy in South America at that time was going good.
Yeah.
And Honda South America was selling a lot of units, and there was so much around that Dakar, you know. And so, you know, a lot of that all kind of converged at the same time.
The business side was making sense, along with, you know, Quinn's impressive performances, and also just like, hey, look, there's a Honda out there getting coverage, and there's a Honda working. Yeah. So that's very cool. I didn't know Quinn was in charge of the Honda racing team in the beginning. That's new information to me.
Well, I think
not in charge, but
you started it. You started
think
it.
from his interest, it, you know, it kind of kicked it off. Although they were interested on the other side already. It was It just converged.
You know, and it even, I mean, gosh, it started even before that. I remember when you were starting JCR, and it was like everything was changing, right? Johnny's transferring from Honda to JCR, and I remember you coming up to me at one point, and you're like, "Hey, we want to try to do Dakar. I'm doing my own thing next year. Everything's changing," and I'm like, "Oh, whoa, okay." And then you actually had me fill out the entry for Dakar, or the letter of intent, or whatever it was, and this was like before JCR, and you know, I remember asking, I'm like, "So, what if they say no? Like, are you leaving anyway?" Because you were still proposing you're proposing JCR to Honda, because at that time you were running the race team kind of in-house, and so I remember you had early aspirations to go, and then that was 2007 or 2008.
It would have been 2007, because JCR kicked off January of 2008.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, and Bruce was sick. He had cancer and stuff, and it was time for the team to evolve and stuff. And so they thought it was a good idea. But yeah, and I had, at that time, I had a relationship with Monster, and Monster wanted to go, and Robbie was there with Monster.
That's right.
And so that's where our funding was going to come from, if you know, if it all evolved. So
yeah, I mean, I pushed for years from that point, really, and I was like, okay, you know, we like, what's the next thing, right? Dakar. And so I kept pushing and pushing, and we made relationships with Hank over in Europe, and you know, eventually got there. But at that time, there was no Americans on, you know, factory teams. It's not like it is now, where there was even seats for Americans, you know, and so
it's definitely changed significantly in recent history. Well, I mean, recent history is.
I
mean, the last 10 years, really, since that point.
Exactly.
And one of the interesting points is at that time, too, when all that was happening, JCR and stuff like that, evolving, that next year is when Dakar stopped.
In Africa.
That's right.
They cut
stopped it. And so it's like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Is it going to happen again?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it just, you know, they popped it up in South America after that.
It's funny how that stuff works out. Without any of that happening, who knows what would have happened? Don't know. We don't have to worry about it, because it is happening.
Yeah.
Going strong now. And now I think it's safe to say Honda, in the position it is now, is the strongest team coming into this as far as personnel and racers and experience, and you know, just sheer volume of people on the team too. Like it's massive this year.
So you back to the rally a little bit. I wanted to go over. So you did it with Robbie in 12, and then 13. Did you go back on the bike in 13?
Yeah, actually, because I think you had gotten a deal, right, with Speed Brain.
I was with the Speed Brain thing that year.
So you took a deal with Speed Brain to go rally racing, and then
before I knew about the Honda deal, so I kind of went.
it was really
wasn't one of my best decisions making times, but you know.
But it was interesting, because when all that was going down, they're like, we want Quinn. I'm like, he already signed, you know. You know, and so it's just this timing thing, you know.
For sure.
But I went with Rob. So what? No, back up. Sorry, my mind's going. But so what happened in 13 for the Dakar? Because it's always January, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happened in 13 was we had 4 or 5 riders. I forget how many, but we had a couple injuries. So then it was like Helder, Sam, Pizzolito. Another guy who got really hurt was the Brazilian champion.
Yeah. Is that Raul or how do you say his name? It was a Z, right?
Felipe Zenol.
Zenol.
So he had gotten injured testing out there with us and stuff. And so then they're like, well, Johnny, do you want to ride? Will you ride? You know? And I'm like, I'll ride. But at this point, I haven't been, really racing or training or anything for a few years now. And so I was like, I'll ride. And I was excited to ride because it was like a bucket list dream to be on HRC at the Dakar. Right?
Yeah, right.
And at that, and from the 80s till then, there was no Honda factory effort, right? In Dakar. They came in the 80s, kicked everybody's butt for a few years, and then they left.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is going to be exciting, you know? So I go, I'll ride, but I'm not going to try to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Just support Helder, support Pizzolito, just go. So that's what I did. And it really helped me with the development point because I was able to ride the race and really kind of feel what we needed to improve. And because at that point, we were really just using a production bike. We used a 450X, Gen 1, and they had modified it, put fuel injection on it and these tanks and stuff. But, we came back from that and we're like, too slow, too heavy. We need to go faster. We need to handle better, and then
a blueprint. And
then from there, they built a prototype of basically what they've been riding up till current.
Yeah.
And so it'd been refined every year. We made, strides in refinement and durability and stuff. And then, so that was kind of the evolution.
Yeah. It seems like that happened fast. Even though
it's weird that it's 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's 10 years ago now.
Yeah. So that bike, the new bike, is when they came out with the twin cam engine and the new chassis and everything else. Then that was 2013, which is
we tested
crazy.
Then they raced it in 14, and then kept evolving it and stuff. I did go back. I didn't go with the team in 14. I took a year off, and then I went back in 15 as Robbie's co-driver again.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I had forgotten the pain, so I just let's have another baby. So I went back and we went in the Gordini and we raced that. And then from then on, I think 14, 15, that's also, I helped Laia Sans get on the team there.
Yeah.
She came over. That was another kind of a sidebar to this was, Laia was doing the World X Games at the time, and in the Barcelona round, she rode a Honda, and then the next round was L.A. And so I contacted her and said, hey, do you have any support over? She says, I have nothing. And so I'm like, hey, I got a bike. I got a team for you. Just get your plane ticket, get over here. And then we took her to X Games in L.A., and she won.
Yeah.
And so that was fun. But at the same time we did that, I was doing durability testing.
Oh, got it.
And so I brought her out, and the Japanese were kind of like, what? I don't know.
Why are you bringing this woman to the durability test?
I'm like Yamazaki-san, just let her ride. Okay. Yeah. They let her ride, and they're looking at the watch. Oh, okay. I just remember after like a day, those guys go back to the hotel room. They have a couple beers, couple cigarettes. And the next day, the Yamazaki's like, Johnny, we have a bike for Laia.
Really?
So
that's cool.
So got her a deal for a couple years. Yeah.
Like you got to be a badass to get a ride after a 1-day test. To impress that much.
Yeah. I remember being at one of those tests, the early durability tests, and Laia was there. It was like myself, David Camo. I think I forget who else was riding, but Johnny, was probably riding a little bit, and nobody wanted to look at the times, right? Everybody's, you know, but then you're kind of like, you know, looking over at the paper, and you had to be on your game, racing, going pretty fast to go faster than Laia, you know. And it was like she was laying down lap times that were faster than Camo and I, and you know, we're like, oh, okay, well,
that's a rad story.
Keep the boys on their toes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. People are always like, oh.
It's actually pretty cool. She wrote an autobiography. She has a book.
Oh, rad!
And she had a chapter in there on that whole thing.
Cool.
Experience here, yeah.
You gotta check that out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's all in Spanish, so
yeah.
I'll find some way to translate it. Very cool.
Yep.
From there, you know, Ricky Brayback comes on board, and you know, the rest is history with that. Getting the first American win, keeping the advancement of that bike going. I mean, it's been the same bike.
Ricky started in what, 16?
Kind of.
I think it was 16, right?
Yeah. And actually, that was Ricky is a Quinn prodigy.
Actually. Yeah, right.
You know,
it's Quinn's fault. We say Quinn's fault.
Quinn was like, "Hey, you should really look at this kid," you know. And I'd seen Ricky before, like several years, you know, but didn't really pay any attention. He was really, you know, big dude and overweight and stuff. And
then he got serious. Attacked the Hare and Hound series and won.
Yeah,
and like opened some people's eyes up. Yeah.
And into 14 or into 15.
Yeah.
He didn't really have a deal. And I forget when he had actually fractured his neck around some time in there.
Yeah. Yep.
And, but I think Quinn took him on his first road book out in the Mojave Desert there. And, so Quinn kind of handed him off to me, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with this guy? And so then Ricky and I we started riding together, and, you know, we started kind of training him and stuff. And then I started going, okay, what do I need to evolve? And so I got Jimmy involved, and, you know, Quinn took off with his career at KTM and everything. And then, so anyway, I told Ricky right away, I'm like, hey, you know, it's like, if you want to win this race, it's going to take like 3 years, you know. It's like, it's not, these guys are no joke, you know. Yeah, you're the badass Hare and Hound champion, Baja champion, BITD champion, and you're super fast, and there's no doubt in that. He said, but you don't know how to navigate. You don't know the rules and stuff. And so we'd kind of like, we'd send Ricky away with the team, and he'd go do a race, and then he'd come back. Okay, what kind of problems do you have? Okay, let's focus on this and focus on this. And so we worked with him for about 3 years, and then in that 3 years, that's when he really, every year he stepped up his game. And he had a couple problems where he didn't finish, one of the Dakars, a couple of the Dakars, I forget.
2 years. I remember he was leading that 1 year, with 2 stages to go or something.
And that's in 19. It was looking like it was going to be the year, and then they lost a motor at the last couple of days, and so that was a big heartbreaker, of course, because it was like, okay. Oh man, they should have. You always get the woulda, shoulda, couldas. Like, we could have taken a motor. Then you would have had to take a penalty. Then you wouldn't have been in the position to win. But there's all these things, right? But it's like we evolved him in 3 years, and he was actually competing.
Yeah, he was battling for the win.
And so, when I say we, it's like I put in a little bit, Jimmy put in a little bit, Quinn put in a little bit, early on, and it was just like. It's all Ricky,
Yeah.
It's the rider. He has to work hard. He has to be the guy with the mindset to win and keep the thing on 2 wheels. So Ricky did a ton of work. He's a hardworking dude, and he wants to win really bad. And so he had to heartbreak 19, and that was a really, he really had to go find himself after that, because he was so emotionally distraught after that problem. And it was just like do I want to do this anymore? You know, well,
I already put in so much. Am I willing to do this again and possibly have my heart broken?
You know, that's the hardest thing about having your focus is on one race, right? Your whole year, everything you do all year long is put into one race. And I remember it from the Baja days. Like, really everything we did was just for training for Baja. And you'd work so hard all the way up to the race. You know, you'd race the race, you know, you win, whatever, at the end, but you go home and you're like, what do I do now? Yeah. You know? And there's like a good 2 weeks where your motivation is just stale and gone. And sometimes it lasts even longer, you know,
on the calendar.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to like find your motivation when you have a heartbreak like that after a whole, you know, years of working at it. And then you're right there and then it's just gone.
Taken from you.
Nope. Sorry. But Ricky did what a champion would do, and he didn't let the defeat define him. You know, he came back. We worked harder that year, and you know, then he came back and really had a dominating fashion in the 2020 Dakar when he won. You know, it was like, and that year it had moved to Saudi, right? There's a first year, new continent, all this stuff, and the riding just suited Ricky. Open desert. You know,
open desert,
you know, just,
rocky, soft.
Yeah. Just everything in between. And, he really had a magical Dakar.
Yeah.
I mean, if I got to say that, I don't think anybody's had, you know, nobody has a trouble-free Dakar, but if you were going to look at one that was trouble-free, it was like 2020 Ricky Brayback was amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
everything went right for him. Plus I think the playing field was leveled. Like there were no more map men or people that have a insight into where maybe the route possibly is probably going to definitely go. There was no more of
this.
this
What to expect, really. It wasn't like they'd been pre-running it and
race team advantages that you know they're doing
knowledge.
They're doing what they can to win. And when we went to Saudi, that was gone. Like everybody's like, we just got to race this thing, and see what happens. And Ricky really took advantage of that and put the smack down, as you say.
Yeah. So that was. And for me personally, wow. I mean, to win the Dakar, the biggest off-road racing event in the world, it was huge, you know. It's like,
it was really cool.
I passed my prime to actually do it as the pilot, you know, on the bike, but just being a small part of it, you know, it was really special. And it's one of my career highlights in the industry, you know.
Yeah, very cool.
You know, so it was pretty neat.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you have to remind me, was that the first one for Honda since the return, right?
Yeah, that was the first one for Honda since I think 88 or 89 was the last time they had won since then. So it was like
it took 7 years to go from, you know, the 450X to that, right?
Yeah.
And
wow.
Having a race-winning bike, race-winning team, race-winning rider, you know, it took a while.
And get through the impossible task of the Dakar race.
But also to give a lot of respect to, you know, KTM and their efforts there was like, you know, they were in Dakar like JCR and Honda were to Baja.
Yeah,
know?
Definitely. The dedication and
come on down, try to beat us. It's really difficult because we had so much knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. We had the infrastructure and in all those years. Right.
Yep.
And so then it was like, you know, to overcome an outfit like that, that's when it's really special. You know, it's like you're the underdog. You're the underdog until that happens.
For sure.
You know?
And you're breaking the streak, right? It was what, 18 years or something, you know? Yeah.
Yes. I think it was 18 in a row.
Yeah.
And you're like, nobody else can win.
Yeah. Yeah.
just like Honda and Baja. Nobody else can win.
You had to believe, you know, to really and spend the time and spend the effort, spend the money and everything. And so now it's like, wow, it's a fight now, huh? I mean, the racing now, you know, we could segue into like the racing now is tighter.
Yeah.
It's shorter. I mean, the race is still long. It's 2 weeks long, right? 12 to 14 stages, depending on the year. And the stages are still 500K ish, you know.
It hasn't lost its scale, but it's gained intensity,
but
is how I describe it.
Yeah. And the rider, the athlete, and the equipment is
Yeah.
so much far superior than the old days, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
just
pushing
like-
the edge of like
The
how
equipment.
hard can you go for as long as you can go
Yeah,
at another level. And you said tighter, 40 seconds
yeah.
was the winning margin.
Day after day after day, you know.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, you know, and that's what, you know, we can all agree on is that competition, you know, breeds excellence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know,
This is the case for that. If it was still only a one OEM show, it wouldn't nearly be as nearly as
you get
successful.
complacent.
Yeah,
So
for
that's,
sure.
That's what drives, you know, our system, our industry, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Innovation
yeah.
has to be coming from somewhere, and competition is a great place for it to come from. And now it's like
Yeah.
you guys are on the gas.
Yeah.
for sure. Like KTM probably wouldn't have developed a new bike if Honda wasn't there, you know, competing and winning.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so like it's pushed them to go, okay, we need to get better. And then now Honda's got a new bike, and
We got to get better.
You know.
So fun.
Yeah.
And we get the benefit of it as, you know,
Yeah.
the fans and the people who are passionate about it, just
Yeah.
from a love of the sport perspective.
so now coming into 2024, Honda's, you guys have a 6-rider team,
All
which
on new
is
bikes,
massive.
big effort across the board.
Yeah.
We're blown away by what could possibly happen. It's going to be good. Like, give us your impact or your impression of this Honda.
Yeah. I'm pretty impressed myself. It's like, I thought we were pretty good last year, but things kind of fell apart. You know, Ricky got hurt, another guy bonked out and whatever. And so it kind of dwindled down. So then the team just goes, you know what, we need to come back, you know, full on 100%. We need to have this many guys, and, you know, we got to push this hard and do all this testing and effort. And so, I mean, shoot, you know, everybody's been working hard. All the Honda guys are healthy. And so they're looking to fight, you know. And I know KTM's had a couple guys get hurt and stuff. And so it's going to be a little rough on them. But, you know, that's what, you know, when there's a wounded dog, we take advantage of it.
Yeah, you're not going to lift off the gas here.
Yeah.
You're
Don't
going
let
to
off.
look for some weakness out
But,
there for sure.
you know, one of the biggest standouts this year is the Tosha Sharina.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
him coming out of almost nowhere, you know, he was an enduro guy, but wow, he really impressed me. Like his attitude, his riding ability, just his thought process and stuff. It's like he's been really solid all this year. Did really good at a couple of the world rounds, and he's definitely a big advantage for us. I think.
Nice to have somebody young coming into the team that, you know, is fresh to add that to it. But has your role here in the States, as far as developing new bike, like you guys were probably instrumental in improving that new bike's systems and chassis and suspension and all that kind of stuff. Like,
We were trying to juice some detail out of Skyler, but he wouldn't say much.
yeah, that
but,
guy he's read his
I know
employee
Johnny's
handbook
not gonna
well.
say much
Yeah.
either. But
And
what
he is,
Yeah.
what did we get on the new bike? I mean,
because the other one, we knew everything about it. It's been around for like 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
lighter, better handling. You know.
did we get a new engine?
more-
Yeah.
Engine is actually pretty close. You know?
Okay.
So
Yep. Chassis.
yeah, chassis. I mean,
Chassis's
the bike's
new.
pretty much nose to tail. You know,
Okay.
the power plant's pretty similar, but it nose to tail. You know,
Okay.
and they just worked on it and tried to get, you know, the better handling. Really, I think.
Just more modern, because I think even Ricky was saying, and we mentioned this before, like Ricky's like, we're on a comfortable bike
Yeah.
most of the time. We can set it up stiff, like
Yeah.
Beretta has his super stiff. He goes, but mine's squishy.
Yeah.
Like when I hit bumps, it moves. And he goes, and he sees the KTM guys just like, he's like, what are you doing? You guys are riding some aggressive stuff. And he was always like, ours are comfortable. And, you know, I'm sure it's a update in that whole world, because KTM's definitely going the other way. They're like supercross race bikes. Those
I
things
mean,
are,
that
like,
was
nimble.
you know, for sure the step between the last KTM bike and the new one was big, and
Pretty
it
aggressive.
was into a very like aggressive, you know, nimble kind of setup, and they've had some struggles for sure in the last couple of years.
Yep.
But I mean, the bike's good. Like
For sure.
I was out testing it just a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, okay, now you guys have it. Don't chase your tail anymore. You're fine.
Stop
And-
fixing things.
And but it'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
You know,
developing a new bike it takes a lot of work. It's like, you think, oh, well, why do you change the bike? If it's good and it's a winner and whatever, well, there's always evolution, there's ingenuity, and systems get, lighter, systems get faster, stronger, whatever. And to put in, Quinn's a prime example because of his position, is like, to take a new bike from ground up is a lot of work, to get it to where it's, hey, we're going to go race this thing now, So it's been a big labor of love this year, working on it and stuff. And we're super excited to see it go, and compete. And, but we'll see. I can't, like I said, I can't give you a whole bunch of details on it, of course, but that's
nature of the beast. Is everybody on the new bike on the team, or is anybody riding previous generation bike?
Actually, Tosha is supposed to be on the old bike.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just because of mostly time and resource,
You can only make so many of these new rally bikes in a year.
6 guys all of a sudden.
Yeah. It's been.
You guys weren't planning on building, a dozen of these for all your rally racers this year.
Yeah. They built a fleet of them for Morocco. Then those turned into their training bikes, and then the Dakar bikes will be all fresh and ready to go.
Do you know, sense of scale, how many people are on the HRC squad in Saudi Arabia for the race, like mechanics and drivers and
it'll be close to 30.
30 staff members and racers,
including the riders. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty reasonable.
It's pretty compact. It's pretty efficient.
Pretty lean. Yeah. I want to say there were years where it was maybe
there was more,
even more than that.
There was maybe close to 40 at times.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow,
I mean, you get to that point, where it's just too big, right?
It's
you
like,
need,
get out of here. You're bugging everybody.
Yeah.
too many people to keep track of.
Yeah. So, they've tried to lean it down, and of course everybody has budgets and stuff. And especially when you build a new bike, there's a whole lot of expenditures, and so they'll try to keep it as lean as possible for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 2 Americans this year. So Skylar Howes, you guys picked him up.
Yeah. So Skylar was a new guy, a new rider, and he's had a really good. I like Skylar's career path, how he's been, because he really had to work hard for it. He's a privateer guy, had some good finishes, but I mean, he was a guy that was selling everything he had to get to Dakar at one time.
Yeah. He's proven his dedication
selling trucks
to success,
and selling vans and selling bicycles, and just to get there.
Yep.
And so he's like a really a passionate enthusiast. And he's worked his way up the ladder, and you can see his results. Like, he got in there, okay, he finished, and then he got 9th, and then he got 5th, and now he got 3rd. And so, he's got a pretty good method, racecraft going. And so, I think we were really fortunate to be able to, give him a position on the team and stuff. And he's been a pleasure to work with. So I'm really excited about having 2 Americans on the team. Helps us out over here because it just gives us more resource, to train or just so it'll give us a lot of strength too in communications and stuff. It works well. Him and Ricky are very similar in stature, and so their setup is pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
They like a little bit different things, but so getting the bike to work for both of them hasn't been too terribly tough.
It's not like you're building a Nacho bike and then a Ricky bike at the same time, which is they're not the same size.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, us Americans, we're all about the same size.
Yeah. But what it does too is having 2 Americans on the team, and we touched on this before, was like people or the public learning the sport, the enthusiasts learning the sport. It's like, well, what's Dakar? What's a rally? Why is it different than Baja? Why is it, it's like it's just more knowledge out there, so people can understand more about the racing and the sport.
Yeah, it is good to have more of that North American influence out there, because I mean that's why we're doing this, so that people get it, because it's so cool.
The other thing too is like the Dakar it's an adventure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at all the motorcycle racing it's the biggest adventure. Baja is the biggest race in North America. It's the biggest, longest, continuous, historic race.
Yeah.
But if you look at adventure worldwide, a lot of people look at the Dakar, and that's what kicks off our adventure segment, right?
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the hottest segment for the last 10 years in the motorcycle business is adventure, right? Like everything has shifted to that. And really, you have now Honda, Yamaha, KTM, Ducati, Triumph, all these brands in the adventure segment. And it's all really stemming from, from the Dakar.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see. Yeah, of course, we don't sell a rally bike, but there's a lot of cool bikes that.
Right. And that's one thing that I run into occasionally is like, wow, is Ricky really racing the Africa Twin? Well, then you kind of have to explain a little bit, it's like, well, they used to race twin cylinder bikes back in the day, but
it's good marketing.
We have a specific race bike for this,
highly specialized.
So, but it's kind of funny, but yeah, that segment is a growing segment, like Quinn mentioned, and all the manufacturers are geared up and they're putting time and effort into it, and so it's fun. I love it, and Honda has a new Transalp,
right?
It came out and updated the Africa Twin and stuff, and so I'm excited to do some adventure rides this year.
Yeah, I mean it's what we're doing most of the time.
Yeah.
I always put my hand up at Cycle News and they're like, there's an adventure bike intro. And I'm like, yes, please. I'll go to that one because it's all the fun parts about motorcycling put together.
Yeah.
And the adventures you can go on. The race this year, it's not going to be easy.
No.
By design. It's going to be long and grueling and confusing and everything. What's your take on the course? Have you given it any thought yet, or the new race format with the 48-hour stage mystery, or any of that stuff coming to the top of your mind about what to dread at this year's Dakar Rally?
Yeah, what's interesting in the Dakar now is like, the temperature is a lot less than South America.
Yeah,
South America was really
hot, and then
there
cold.
There were some cold spots.
It's like hot and cold.
Andes,
yeah,
but it was really hot in a lot of areas, and Saudi's been really mild.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit
even
cold.
wet, even raining,
cold.
It's a little cold in the north and a little bit more hot and humid in the east part, like in the empty quarter and stuff, where there's a lot of sand and dunes and stuff. But it's not really that hot.
Yeah.
Overall, so the climate's good for this time of year. But so that it comes into play as far as like last year we had so much rain and it was wet and and it kind of takes a little bit of challenge out of the race because somebody's leaving a line.
There's a stripe out there.
And then all of a sudden it turns into a desert race, following the line, and nobody pays attention to their navigation as much. But so hopefully hopefully it doesn't rain, one, because it makes it uncomfortable, but especially for us in the bivouac.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's really interesting is how far east they're going over in the empty quarter, going to spend a couple stages over there. And it's a lot of sand and a lot of emptiness.
Yeah, no roads.
And they're doing the chrono stage. The chrono stage is that 48 hours things you mentioned. And it's really strange. They have all these bivouacs set up to where the riders, they race up until like 4 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
then it stops.
Then you have to stop at one of the bivouacs.
The next one.
Right. The next one.
Right.
But your time stops at 4. So they're going to be able to take the time off of the
distance, basically.
Yeah. So what I still don't understand.
Either do we. We've been trying to figure it out.
It's like, okay, well, I'm still 25 kilometers from the bivouac and it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Are they going to cut me off at 3:30 at this other bivouac? But the problem is your time still goes
until
Even if you stop at that bivouac and you still got a half hour worth of riding to go, your time still stops.
So you're getting 0 miles per hour at that time.
Yeah. So it's really crazy, and we need to I need to study it more.
Yeah. So do we. We've been trying to figure it out.
There's not much information out there.
We can't yet.
I mean, the way that I understand it is okay. So they stop you at 4 o'clock, right? The clock stops. So everyone's time to 4 o'clock is what their time is and where they are on the ground. So is it just luck of the draw is where the next bivouac is? So you get to ride 10 kilometers and you're at the next bivouac, and maybe one of your competitors who started a little further back has to start the next day
behind you
at a different bivouac.
Yeah.
And
behind you on
you
course,
have a 10
essentially.
kilometer advantage on them because all that time that you get to ride after 4 o'clock is
free.
off the clock. So it's free. Or is there something else that I'm missing that?
Yeah. I think there's a couple components that is missing
that we'll just figure out.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
You're just going to figure it out when you get there.
So yeah, it's a definitely a confusing game, at this point, but nonetheless, there's going to be 10,000 kilometers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Plenty of other things to worry about.
Plenty of, half of that's going to be race. The other half's going to be liaison.
Yep.
But in the end, you have to complete 10,000 kilometers.
Yeah, we've seen people go out on those liaisons like Daniel Sanders and plenty of other people. It's not an easy part of the race.
You got to keep it together, and every day your fatigue gets more and more and more, and so it becomes harder and a mental game on the second half, and so I think when they throw in these games like that, it's hard because everybody's already fatigued. So you got to stay sharp. Your team you got to have a team strategy.
Got to have the support to build those guys back up as they're digging that hole every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's one thing you guys have a lot of racers and a lot of team.
Yeah, and that's part of my job. I'll be driving a motorhome for Ricky and Nacho. I believe.
Got it.
And
the dynamic duo is back.
Yep. So they get along really well on the team. They're dynamic and stuff. So I'll be cooking some dinners and stuff like that and breakfast and get those guys going.
So how's the relationship with Ricky and Skylar as far as having the two competitors, kind of big dogs on one team now? What do we?
They've been working well together.
Yeah.
We've been at a lot of tests together, and we actually just finished a few days of training all together last week and stuff. And so, yeah, they've been working well toward the goal, for the team, for themselves and stuff. So there really hasn't been a bunch of push and shove,
Yeah.
So it's good, and at first I wasn't quite sure how Ricky was going to take it.
Yeah, you never know.
But, he's taken it real well and actually, got him to think that, Skylar's another resource for us. It's, let's take advantage of it. And, he can take advantage of us. And it's like, let's just have a strong effort and let's go win.
Yeah. Nice.
We were hoping for a little more drama than that.
The race hasn't started yet, though. Might be. They're not sharing a motorhome, though.
Yeah.
No.
But I think the motorhome's too small for both those guys.
Yeah, we got two big
You have
dudes
one
and
little
a
dude.
small Euro motorhome.
And we want to keep the Americans separate. We talked about this before. You can't have that much Americanism in one small space. It'll just be fireworks going off and bald eagles flying around or something. You gotta spread that out.
For sure. Got to definitely spread
the patriotism out a little bit.
Yeah.
It's planting some American flags out there in the Saudi soil.
Very good.
Very good. Well, what else is happening out there in Dakar land? I mean, it's just like you don't know until it gets started and you're about halfway through it. And then you're like, cool, we're kind of in a rhythm now.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's just the anticipation of, okay, we got a holiday.
Yep.
Christmas is in the next couple of days and family and stuff. But, for the racers especially, it's like, they're thinking about the race, They're thinking about, do I got all my stuff? Did I take enough stuff? Do I have all my gear? Do I have
my food?
Yeah. And I'll be calling the guys, and say, hey, do you remember this? Did you remember this? Do you remember this?
Give them that Johnny Campbell checklist.
Just give
some
them
details.
Just give them a few things. The good thing is both of those guys are pretty well rehearsed and
they've done it before.
So they're really good about it.
Very cool. Well, I know I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a good one this
Quinn,
year.
can you predict who's going to win the Dakar Rally yet?
No,
okay.
Not the slightest idea.
Me neither. I'm not going to start picking.
Yeah, I'm not going to either. Of course, we have our favorites because we love our colors and teams and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's the Dakar, and that's the thing. That's why we're sitting here talking, because it's interesting, it's exciting, it's
Unknown.
It's unknown. It's an adventure, and the good thing here in the U.S. it's televised, and we have live tracking and stuff through the apps you can use, and that's
got a fantasy league, a Dakar Derby,
got a podcast, you got YouTube videos of us talking about podcast.
Yeah,
it's all you need. All you need is Dakar Rally Daily, and that's all you need to get caught up on everything that happens at the rally every day. Because we're going to be calling Johnny Campbell every day and have him tell us what happened at the rally that day.
Yep.
It's pretty simple.
I'll be there for you guys. No problem.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much for giving us your history of the Dakar Rally and where you came from and where you're going. And, we're really excited to see what Honda does this year, I think. And obviously the American boys on the team specifically. But, I mean, it's going to be a lot of red bikes out there doing some stuff.
Definitely some red bikes.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Johnny.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas. We did it. All the buttons are still red, which I think is good. A lot of buttons are red is bad thing, but here, buttons are red, good thing.
Good stuff. Awesome.